Hi, good morning. We're here with Mark Eardley from Langcliffe International. How you doing, Mark?
Yeah, pretty well this morning, thank you. Pretty
Good,
well.
good stuff. So, if you'd like to start us off, go straight in and tell us a little bit about who you are, what it is that you do, and how long you've been doing it for, please.
My name's Mark Eardley. I'm Chief Executive now of a business called Langcliffe International Limited. We claim to be Europe's leading deal origination business within mergers and acquisitions. What I mean by that is we sit effectively at the centre of the mergers and acquisition ecosystem in Europe. We employ 21 people based in Ilkley, West Yorkshire, with a couple in Europe and a couple in Tenerife, but they could be anywhere. And what we do very simply is we speak to vendor advisors, i.e. people who advise companies for sale. So you'll know a lot of these, or the audience will know a lot of these. So it's Grant Thornton, BDO, RSM, and the accountants who have mergers and acquisitions or corporate finance businesses. It's a series of corporate finance boutiques, i.e. people who specialize in mergers and acquisitions around the country. And then it's a number of business brokers. They tell us what they have for sale in a value range 3 to 50 million, and we introduce those opportunities to buyers. The unique or USP of our model, I think, is the range of contacts and the, I suppose, density of those contacts with advisors across Europe, and the fact that we don't charge the vendor or his advisor a single penny. We only charge the buyers. And we only charge the buyers if a transaction completes. So very simply, that's enabled us to build up a big database of companies for sale. We see 2,000 new companies for sale between 3 and 50 million in value. That makes us very relevant to buyers. And we're engaged by 70% of European private equity firms, lots and lots of corporates across Europe. We're starting to expand that internationally into India, UAE, US. And because of that, we're very relevant to vendor advisors. And nobody gets charged a penny if a deal doesn't happen. So that's enabled us to grow the volume. Fantastic. So very simply, we're a recruitment business recruiting companies for buyers of companies.
Excellent. So how long have you been doing that for? When did the company start?
We set the business up about 12, 13 years ago. Prior to that, I worked within mergers and acquisitions in a more sort of advisory role.
Mm-hmm. And what was the impetus for you to start it yourself?
Complete and utter failure. I was probably the world's least successful accountant, although I wasn't even an accountant. I joined accountancy practice aged 40. That was going bust. After 4 years, I managed to engineer a deal where we sold that to somebody else. That was going bust. I managed to engineer a deal that was employing 1,000 people, engineered a deal to sell that to somebody else. That somebody else was Tenon or RSM Tenon, and that actually went bust. So I got to the age of 51, 52, maybe it's 50, and I had a negative personal balance sheet. And although I was a director in the enlarged business, A, it wasn't enough to enable me to pay off all my debts, simplistically. And B, I never wanted to trust anybody else ever again with my efforts. I wanted to do something myself. And I guess C, I saw an opportunity.
Great, good story there coming off the
Interesting, yeah. There's some amusing anecdotes along the way in that 10-year journey of failure, as I'll put it.
So maybe we could delve a bit deeper into those. So what does in terms of, I'm going to say, what does your business journey look like with Langcliffe International, if you could describe it, involving those previous years? Yeah, just...
Yeah, I mean, if you take the 12, I can't exactly remember how many, but I think it's about 12. If you take those years, we were initially a business. The opportunity existed because I perceived that there were a number of buyers who were interested in making acquisitions and would pay a fee, but they didn't want to pay retainers or fees of that nature in the event of a lack of success. And also, there was an imperfection in the market in that however good the vendor advisors were, and some were not that good, they could never find all the buyers. So that was the sort of gap we took advantage of. Initially, you know, we started with one buyer and one seller. One buyer, one seller, we got nowhere. 10 buyers, 10 sellers, nowhere. 100 buyers, 100 sellers, nowhere. 1,000 buyers, 1,000 sellers, maybe the odd little deal. Whereas now we're up to about 10,000 sellers and 16,000 buyers. Some of the sellers have already sold, some of the buyers no longer are acquisitive, but the volume we have and the growth is why we do pretty well. But I suppose the real transformation of the business was about 3-4 years ago when we decided to expand into Europe. And yeah, we now generate 60% of our fees from European buyers and about 50% of our fees from European sellers, i.e. non-UK. So, you know, it's been an interesting journey. We've expanded the staff. We've made mistakes in, I suppose, every aspect of the business. But I think you learn from mistakes, and we're not going to make them again. And I suppose if you don't take the risks that inevitably may result in a mistake, you're not going to grow the business. You're not going to expand it. You're not going to take it into, I suppose, interesting newer areas. So, yeah, the journey's been one. It hasn't been like that. It's sort of been like that.
Sounds familiar.
But the last 3 or 4 years has been very positive.
Fantastic. So in terms of that learning, you said about mistakes and making them, but then learning from them. What would you say, if there's one learning that you could pick out to share, one or two perhaps, that come from that? What would it be?
Don't think this was a learning, because I think I knew this from day one, but accept your strengths, play to your strengths, recognize your weaknesses, and build a team, or certainly build a relationship, or have somebody in your business who covers all your weaknesses or the majority of your weaknesses, and therefore allows you to play to your strengths. I'd say that was one thing. Second thing, take risks, but take risks, but make them small risks. So if you want to go into, for example, America, try and go into one little state and see how that works. Or you want to go into Europe, choose a little country and see how that works. Don't gamble the house, but do gamble. And I think in relation to staff, make decisions quickly. You know, if somebody's right, you know they're right, look after them. If somebody feels wrong, even after 1 or 2 weeks, really focus on whether they're right or wrong, get to the bottom of that, help them. But if ultimately they're wrong, just bite the bullet for both parties. And we're very blessed now. We've got a fantastic team, absolutely great team.
Brilliant.
I suppose as well, sorry, the final thing I'd say is that I don't think you retain staff purely on remuneration. I think retention of staff and keeping really good people is about finding out what they want to do, encouraging them to do it, delegating as much as you can sensibly do to that, and support them. But the more, you know, the more you can make them feel really involved and really committed, and they've got their own areas and they've got their own responsibilities, when you can build that and have a team feeling like that, I think that's really good. And just a sideline here, we ended up selling the business, and we had various offers, but I ended up selling it to the staff under an employee ownership trust. So building a quality team, I think ultimately was, together with Europe, the two things that have really transformed the business.
Brilliant. Some good shares there, especially on that sort of staff retention and ownership, like it. So what does the future look like for you guys? I know you said the last 3 or 4 years have proven to be strong for you. So what does that look like from the next 3 or 4 years, and what do you see the main challenges are for you to do? I think
there's a few things quickly. The first thing is more of the same. We're not going to complicate the model. We have a very simple model. It's completely unique. There's nobody in Europe doing what we do. So I think the first thing is more of the same. Capitalize on what we've got in Europe. That's, I'd say, the first thing. Second thing is there's a natural extension to the business, which is about off-market research work and using data in a different way, which I won't bore you with because it'd take 10 minutes to explain, but there's a whole area around research and using data in what we're doing. And we're very close to tying up with somebody who can add real value to us there. And then the third thing in terms of growing the business, I'm fortunate in that I don't have to run the business day to day now. I've got a fantastic team headed by a managing director called Helen, who's been with me since from day one. She runs the business day to day, so I don't have to worry about that. So my role is really to develop it. And I think the development is internationally. So we've got 4 people from the beginning of September on the phone to potential Indian buyers, actually in India. So, we're joint venturing with an investment bank in India to do that. We're exploring the UAE to try and put a similar model into the, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, the whole area, Saudi Arabia. And we need to work out what we do in America. So I think the future really is more of the same in Europe, combined with developing the business internationally.
How do you...
And we're fortunate in a way that when I talked about taking risks before, when you've got bugger all, risk is £1,000 here and £1,000 there. When you're making significant profits using the same percentage, we can risk tens of thousands, I guess, at an idea and see if it works and do it properly. So that's what we're trying to do with India, UAE, and the US. So it's international development is the answer to your question.
And in terms of the challenges of seeing that, is it not necessarily as a challenge? You say you just mitigate the risk by making small bets and then...
Yeah, mitigating the risk and accepting it may not work. There might be something culturally that is very... We find it very difficult to deal with, for example, Asia directly ourselves. I think they have a completely different business culture. And we just find it very difficult to deal from Harrogate or Ilkley. The business is based in Ilkley, West Yorkshire, to Mumbai. So, we're hoping that by having people in Mumbai, in fact, I don't even know where they are. I hope they're in Mumbai. Well, I don't know. It doesn't really bother me in India. They can be wherever it suits. But by having locals dealing with locals, that will hopefully make it a bit easier to address.
Good stuff. Thank you.
But recognize it may not work. Absolutely recognize it may not work.
Good stuff. So, what inspires you to do what you do, Mark? What would you say? So, I mean,
well, I started off age 51 with a negative personal balance sheet.
Yeah.
And children in private education. I'd be lying if I didn't say money was the first motivation. That's addressed now. I enjoy the people I work with. Of my friendship group, and I'm 62 now, those of us who are 62 and still mentally active and working just seem to be a little bit sharper on average than those that are not working. So I have no desire to stop working. I enjoy my business, excited to see how far I can take it. And I might have said this on day one, I really like my team. I really, really respect everybody who works for me. And now they effectively own 73% of the business. If I succeed, they succeed. So, also they can sack me. So I have to behave myself.
Got to be on form yourself.
Yes.
It's a self-fulfilling model that you've got there, so it's good. In terms of, lastly then, if people want to find out about what you do and want to get in touch, or any latest news that you'd want to share, so if it's just your website or any contact details, feel free to give that now.
Well, I suppose very simply, if anybody listening to this is a private company, making £1 million ish and upwards, and they want to explore the market, we know more buyers in Europe than anybody else. I guess similarly, and I don't, it's my failing, I don't fully know the scope of Action Coach, but I would imagine that within the within the client base, particularly internationally, you're going to have highly acquisitive entities that want to make acquisitions to grow the business. Well, on the flip side, we see more companies in Europe for sale than anybody else. So, you know, if that is relevant to them, we'd love to hear from them. We're called Langcliffe, LANGCLIFFE International. And our website is www.thatlongname.com. You know, we'd be very happy to speak to anybody. You know, our business is based on networks. It's based on sitting in the middle of a mergers and acquisitions ecosystem. So anybody who wants to be in that system, we're more than happy to hear from them.
Excellent. Sounds like a good fit, Mark. Thank you very much for all that you've shared. Been a pleasure talking with you, and I wish you all the best for the future of the business.
That's very, very kind of you. Thank you.